Greetings, and thank you for joining Napa Valley Sessions, Leading Climate Action. Tonight we'll explore why the Napa Valley is at the forefront of sustainability and what it means for the wine in your glass. Throughout our history, vintners in Napa Valley have set a high standard of land use and management designed to preserve our agricultural heritage and way of life. This began all the way back in the 1960s, when Napa County created the nation's first agricultural preserve, recognizing agriculture as the highest and best use of land in Napa County. Building on this history of stewardship, vintners continue to demonstrate leadership through programs like Napa Green, which provide opportunity for comprehensive sustainability certification in both vineyard and winery. The Napa Green program continues to evolve, requiring an even greater commitment to climate action, regenerative agriculture, and social equity. If you are interested in the more academic side of wine, be sure to join us next week for two very in-depth looks at viticulture and winemaking. Go to napavintners.com and find the Napa Sessions page to RSVP. Now to introduce our moderator, Master of Wine, Martin Reyes. A first-generation American, Martin is the first Master of Wine of Mexican descent. With a prolific career as a buyer, importer, educator, and winemaker, he's held many influential roles in many sectors of the industry. Martin's wine story began with an overindulgent dinner while studying in Paris while at Stanford for undergrad. And by 2003, he was stocking shelves at K&L Wine Merchants in California. In 2015, he was named one of Wine Enthusiast's top 40 under 40 tastemakers. Today, he consults across the full wine supply chain. So without further ado, I hand it over to Martin and for the discussion on sustainability in the Napa Valley. Over to you.
Thank you, Connor. You know, making the best wines in the world, it's not enough. Having almost 4 million visitors per year, not enough. Having Michelin stars all over the place is not enough. Now, you know what the session's about, so you know where I'm going with this. We've all watched that example real time this past year. We watched how the climate change became the climate crisis. Some of us very up close, that firestorm that went through Sonoma, Napa, and beyond. There's no planet B. This is the one we've got. And Napa Valley knows this too. And it's doing something about it. In fact, it's been doing something, as Connor mentioned, for quite some time. And yet, I would ask each of the audience members right now to think to yourselves, what comes to mind when someone says Napa Valley to you? Top thing comes to mind. I would say might think Cabernet Sauvignon, right? Maybe luxury, the word world-class wine, romance, magic, right? I want to make a bet with you. By the end of the session, I like to change, a personal challenge really, I like to change one person's mind out of the people that are watching, just one, so that when the top 5 words that come to mind when it comes to Napa Valley, you would also say climate resilient. Now I would like to introduce 3 climate resilient rock stars, 3 stewards of their land, their winery, and their community, who are today's panelists. I'd like to start with Anna Diogo-Draper, Director of Winemaking at Artesa Vineyards Winery. She was born in Portugal. Anna was raised around wine. She tended her family's vines as well. She was immersed in that kind of tradition that Mediterranean cultures breathe like air. Her childhood stayed with her until she had that aha moment, a winemaking class where she's like, wow, winemaking. And she went to California, came here in 2005, Rutherford Hill as harvest intern, and then assistant winemaker. She joined Artesa in 2013, becoming director of winemaking in 2015. Anna's considered a collaborative and creative winemaker by her peers. She's involved in topics like sensory analysis, quality control, and the ultimate artistry in the science of wine blending, which she says is like this thrilling alchemy. And she likens it to her journey of discovery and even self-discovery. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin.
Excellent.
Pleasure
Excellent.
to be.
Wonderful. And following Anna is actually a friend of Anna's, Elizabeth Viana. She's the winemaker and general manager at Chimney Rock. Elizabeth's winemaking career began over 2 decades ago with an internship at Trefethen, also another rockstar Napa Green program, and Chimney Rock. But then she left. She went to Napa Wine Company as lab director and assistant winemaker, learning from amazing winemakers, including Heidi Barrett, Celia Welch, Pan Starr. But then Chimney Rock wasn't done with her yet. And in 2002, she came back to the place she still calls home today. First assistant winemaker, then promoted to head winemaker as she continues her Stag's Leap brilliance to this day. Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you, Martin. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Lastly, we have Julie Johnson, owner and winemaker of Tres Sabores. Speaking of brilliance, I would say for many of us, Julie deserves her own chapter in the history of Napa land protectors. Some of us stand in awe, I know I've done for a number of years, at her holistic, thoughtful wine growing ethos. She's as close to anyone as I can imagine as the embodiment of that poetic, real deal farmer who also makes good wine, incredible wine. And yet she's naturally not somebody who likes to be in front of the center stage, really. If you go to her bio, the bio page is meet the dogs. It doesn't say meet Julie. But when you press her about her own story, humor and grace comes out. And I quote, "I married a winemaker. Then I married another winemaker. They both make great wines. And I learned a great deal over the 30 years through love, as osmosis, and personal gumption." She was encouraged to make wine in 2001 from her front yard, and the rest is Rutherford history. Welcome, Julie. Well, she might.
I'm here. Oh,
Hi,
I see
Julie.
what I have to do. Start video.
While she gets her video, I will also say that she also is one of the first certified organic wine vineyard estates in Napa. So there's a bit of history for you there. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. There we
Excellent.
go. It says the host has stopped my video. So you just need to release me.
Oh, just release. Well,
Releasing you now. Julie did it right before we started.
Okay. Well, I'll go out and come back in again.
No, you're good. Go ahead and start.
Okay. There we go.
Hey, Julie.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with the two people who I admire so much. And now I'm trying your wines. It's like, whoa, so good.
Excellent. Speaking of that, each panelist has brought a wine that stands for the climate action that they each want to chat about today. So we'll taste them throughout the sessions. As a matter of fact, I'm glad it's 6 o'clock here. I'm breaking my dry January for this. So don't tell Claire, by the way. Okay. So I'd like to begin with Elizabeth and the big picture. Elizabeth, can you tell us about the Chimney Rock's path? I should first start with saying that. Chimney Rock's path in sustainability and climate action.
Yeah, absolutely. So we, this year, complete 40 years of existence, Chimney Rock. It was founded by the Wilson family in 1981, and we immediately went to the model of having a winery and planting our estate vineyard. So they started off with 50 acres planted, and the priority from the get-go was to be sustainable in the vineyards, and that was definitely a priority with the Wilsons. The Trelato family came along in the early 2000s and took the business on after Hack and Stella's kids weren't really interested in following the business. And so that's really when we kind of ramped it up here, I would say. We had worked on the vineyard side considerably in terms of integrated pest management and cover crop use and recycled water. We had a number of really great initiatives, but the Trelato family, knowing that they wanted to pass this piece of land onto their family and wanted to keep it for generations, their mission was really to bring it to a better place than it had ever been. So we sort of moved on to, okay, what can we do on the winery side? How do we make this a holistic approach for us? And so once they came on, we went solar powered back in 2011. we started really thinking about other things that we can do. And we stumbled upon the Napa Green program in the, let's see, probably around 2012. We started to think about it. And the reason the program resonated so beautifully for us was we thought it took a holistic approach to sustainability. It was everything. It wasn't just vineyards. It was, what is your water use? What is your energy consumption? Are you educating your employees? What kind of materials are you using in your tasting room? Are you using plastic water bottles? We literally started to think about every aspect of our business where we could make, a dent. And it's an amazing program because it guides you. And we found the structure that we wanted. We had thought about operating our vineyard sustainably, of course, but this really took us, I think, to the next level. So it's
how does this wine, the one we're tasting right now, the Stag's Leap District, how does this encapsulate that?
So I brought this wine because this is our estate Cabernet. It's a blend of all of the blocks here at Chimney Rock. And I thought it sort of symbolized that holistic approach, that you can't just do it to one block. You've got to take the full on approach, like embrace it. This wine to me says commitment. And this is our 2018 estate Cabernet. And it's really meant to be, to capture the essence of our estate in a given year. I think sustainability, call them crazy, but I think it makes honest, pure wines. And I think this is a great representation of, beautifully taken care of land translating into beautiful Cabernet.
Excellent. Thank you, Elizabeth. Now, I want to come back to that in a minute about what you said, making pure and good wines and raising their quality. But first, I want to bring Julie in, because Julie's, as we know, she's one of the early heroes out front in her estate Tres Sabores, one of the first certified organic wines, to bring in an important perspective and juxtapositioning her stature with something that is really important for her, which is the small view. Julie.
Well, I think, the idea that Elizabeth brought up, it's that we really are talking about a community here. And I think that the thing that Napa Green brings to us is the challenge to continue to develop each other's, to be educated by each other, and to celebrate that community. That has always been part of the Napa Valley. When I moved here in 1980, it was always a story of, somebody's going to lend you equipment if you don't have it, or somebody's going to be giving you the best advice. And it's been a wonderful sort of journey to watch the vintners grow, the growers grow, Napa Green concept come to fruition to this point where they're 95% of the vineyard land in Napa County is certified green. I mean, that's an incredible achievement, and that means that there's a lot of community working together. I'm a tiny part of that. I'm a 35-acre ranch on the western bench of Rutherford, and I have only 12 acres in vines. So it really is like a little bit of a lab, but I'm still a community. I'm still in a partnership, and I'm always conscious of celebrating the relationship that I have with wild spaces all around us. And so I'm always interested in breaking up the monoculture that can be part of the Napa, or really any wine growing ecology. I'm interested in challenging a few of the more modern, I think, takes on wine grape growing. For example, we have farmed from the get-go. So I've moved here to this ranch in '87. So we've been a little over 30 years dry farming. And we were the first vineyard to certify. There were lots of others. Oh my goodness. Spotswood and Elizabeth, where you worked, and Yountville Vineyards and so on. A lot of people who have led the way and continue to lead the way towards wise and prospective and regenerative farming. But with crimping, with minimal till, with dry farming, with championing the little things that you can do, like creating hedgerows to break up that monoculture. Those are the kinds of things that connect the dots for me. I grow pomegranates, for example. I grow pomegranates because they're a great place for the habitat. They bring in birds, they bring in like hummingbirds, they bring in beneficial insects like bees. They give us pomegranate margaritas in November, among other things that we really need when harvest is done. But it does connect the dots. It does work well. So in our own little small scale, we just want to celebrate what the community continues to teach us. And Napa Green has been a great forum for that.
Thanks, Julie. What's interesting is that what comes across when I hear you is a lot of love and a lot of pride, and that is, I think, there's studies that say that the most important, the most potent motivator for things that are amorphous, like climate crisis and things like that, is not fear of losing something, but the love and the pride of bringing your best foot forward and being inspired to protect and then elevate your farm, your state, and your wines. So I want to bring in Anna, because she has a different perspective, a corollary, which is about the long view at Artesa. Anna, please.
So I absolutely agree with everything and reiterate all that Julie and Elizabeth said. I think it's a great sense of community, the Vintners, not just with the Napa Valley Green program, but all the different, the auction. They really bring a sense of community within Napa Valley and within the wine industry in Napa Valley. On our end, we're in the southern end of Napa, so in Los Carneros, Napa Valley. We have about 400 acres with 150 planted into 50 small little plots. Lots of ridges. We have 5 ridges on our property. I always joke we're kind of an accordion. Very challenging to farm, and obviously challenging to farm sustainably, and I think in a way it's a testament and as to what I feel that the Napa Green program is really a guideline for the vintners to follow. And then it's up to each one of us to explore, well, what else can we do in the land that we have the honor to explore and to master. In our case, because our property is so diverse, and we actually we're anywhere from 100 to 400 feet, 500 feet, of elevation. Our highest ridges are within already the Mount Veeder appellation. And so we built with recycled wood from the vineyard. We build owl boxes. We bring sheep around this time of year for weed control, for grazing, trying to, in a way, reduce herbicides, control herbicide use, reduce also mowing costs, but at the same time improving the overall quality of the soil on the estate. And then same as Chimney Rock, we've been here since 1991. Is also, I actually hadn't thought of it. Our 40th anniversary is pretty exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm as Elizabeth, I was talking, I'm like, gosh, I think we need to put our thinking caps here. But as we're starting to redevelop the vineyard, and so we're looking really closely into playing with different clones and rootstocks and trying to really obviously use of water. We've had a couple. Last year was I think a severely drought here in Napa Valley and wine country in general. And so to really look closely, I mean, Julie says she already dry farms a lot. Unfortunately, we don't, but we're really trying to look closely at particularly with rootstocks that are drought resistant or in clones, and what works better. For instance, the wine we're tasting today is our a newly planted block on the property. And it's a trial block. It's really fun. It's about a 10-acre block, and we divided it into seven little plots of about 1.4 acres. And there's Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Tempranillo in there. We're owned by the Reventos Codorniu family in Spain, so we have great pride in our Spanish varietals too. The Pinot, the 4 Pinot clones, we're actually able to dry farm a couple of them, and so with great success last year. So, but we see that this is a flat block. Maybe some of these rootstocks, particularly the 1103 and 5BB, some of them don't work as well on the higher ridges. So it's a lot of trial and error in a way. But I think for me personally, I've been at Artesa since 2013, and then managing winemaking since 15, and we started our development around 2014. It's really that trial and error of what works, what doesn't work, and that experimentation, pushing the envelope. What else can we try? How can we think outside the box to make this sustainability? And as I always say it, my goal is when I leave Artesa to leave it in a better position than when I got here, and for future generations to come, I know for many, many years.
Hey,
My apologies there. Speaking of water, I'm sorry. Anna, you you touched on dry farming. There's a couple of questions related to water, both in viticulture, and you touched on that, as well as water usage in wine production, which we'll cover we'll circle back to that one in a little bit, because right now you did allude to dry farming. Can you give us a quick snapshot about how you're pushing the envelope on that?
Well, like I was saying, with the use of rootstocks that are drought resistant, and with trying some clones that we feel can have better adaptation, but it's also in different soils. We have a lot of diversity. We have some silt loam, different types of soils on the property, and what clones will adapt more. And they're I think in the higher ridges, sometimes with the shallow soils, some of those vines don't adjust as well. And then we also play with sun exposure. So for instance, a lot of our Chardonnay is north face, and we by doing so, we're able to adapt those clones, or the Chardonnay blocks, to be better resistant to lower. They will still irrigate, but to irrigate less and less every year. I feel in some of these vines that are 20, 30 years old, it's really a sort of adaptation, and it's also a progressive thirst, if I can say it that way, to really adapt the vines to that. And it's a work in progress. This year we trialed on blocks we hadn't trialed before, to dry farm, and the results were great, and in others the results were not so good. And I think that sense of experimentation and really see what works and what doesn't, it's where we're trying to push the envelope, and also to really phase out and do more smart watering. So instead of there's a heat wave coming, instead of trying to add all that water right before it comes, when it's probably not as efficient, to be more, we really using a lot of IDMEA, and to really try and see, what are the blocks that are, or the part of a block that is in more need of water. And we have, valves in the actual block where we can limit having more water in part of a block and dry farm the other one, which obviously, comes at a cost. And also planning. I think when you try to dry farm or control the use of water, you really need to have a sense of planning for what you're trying to achieve. And you can't kind of, wing it in a way of speaking, and kind of think on the go. You really have to have a very sense of planning. But I really feel water usage is something that Napa Valley is on the forefront, and it's something very, very important to explore for the next few years.
Thank you, Anna. We're going to talk about your wine here in a minute, but I know it's really easy to get bogged down into the technical aspects of rootstocks and monitoring and pressure bombs and all the evolution since then. And if we have time at the very end, we'll cover the specifics, but there's a lot of ground to cover. So we'll just to acknowledge the questions that have been raised right now. We'll come back to that. But one of the things that, by way of introducing your wine, which is the Pinot Noir from Artesa, that you've brought, one of the lesser obvious things that many producers believe that is a positive consequence is that sustainability elevates quality and winery experience by building that resilience. You specifically mentioned many reasons that you're doing that, and it covers that the love and the pride that I alluded to. So with that adaptive perspective in mind and that adaptive inspiration, tell us about the Pinot Noir that you have brought today.
Of course. So like I said, this is from an experimental block that we planted. So there's about 6 acres planted with Dijon 115. So again, I'm wearing the clones, I can't help it. So Martini clone and Wadenswil, which is a Swiss heritage clone that we hadn't really tried on the property. But the martini we had and what we decided is it's my favorite Pinot Noir clone, and I wanted to try it on new rootstocks. So we tried it on rootstocks again to try and trial that drought resistance. And I really feel that dry farming brought this sense of terroir, just really elevated it. And to me, that was the part that was extraordinary to experience. And all 4 clones, I do a lot of what I call microvinifications and component winemaking. They were fermented separately. We use, concrete, pungent, barrel fermentation, all these different techniques. And all 4 were super interesting. But when I blend those 4 components, the blend of the 4 was just pure magic. I was really, really happy. I think it's a very elegant, very classic Los Carneros Pinot Noir. It's got a lot of those rose petals, very delicate, cold climate. I mean, we are in the southern end next to the San Pablo Bay. But I really felt that there was that synergy of the 4 blocks, and it might be perception of obviously the lyricism of a winemaker, but that marriage of those 4 clones, it really was the essence of terroir. And to me, I wanted to bring it today because I felt it really expresses what we're trying to achieve with the Napa Green program, and to really try and push the envelope what is to be sustainable, and following the guidelines of the program. Where can we push that forward, and where can we be innovative in that, and search for other things? And for me, this block really is the essence of what we're trying to achieve with our sustainability at our estate vineyard.
Excellent. Now, I want to pause for by the way, this Pinot Noir is fantastic. Anyone else drinking? I'm sure we all are. So anyone else want to have a comment to say, either Julie or Elizabeth, on this Pinot?
And I just think this is lovely. I go to Santa Rita Hills or Oregon for a lot of very elegant Pinots. I love Pinots that just have this felt, lovely cherry, bright humidor content without a lot of a lot of ponderous stuff turned in. And this is just so elegant, Anna. Congratulations. I mean, it's a pleasure to drink. I can think of so many things that I would love to drink this with right now. So, yeah. And the dry farming bit, I mean, I think that is a cutting edge now. I mean, it is a relatively new practice, right? Since only 1960s have we been using irrigation. And of course, it's very site and soil and rootstock specific. But I think that's one of the things that really does tie the wine to the terroir and helps it really be expressive, especially if it, as in this case, you're not harvesting so late that you lose the individuality. I thank you. Congratulations. Thanks for letting me try this tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Excellent. I do want to pause for a moment and clarify the certifications. They can get a little blurry if we're not careful. People toss around buzzwords like organic, biodynamic, all very important of farming ethics. So I want to give just a quick, and there's some questions that have sort of tie into this that that will set the stage for when dry farming, what we mean, beneficial insects, the aquifers, wells, all that stuff, right? And Anna Britton, who is the director of Napa Green, she's on here too, and she's been able to answer some of those as well. And she has the website and the resource of Napa Green is dense. Obviously, there is a 4th panelist is here with us, which is Napa Green, right? We've talked about that numerous ways. So I want to just clarify that in the simplest terms possible, conventional farming, transactional, inputs and outputs, right? And then organic farming is, bottom line, prescriptive, natural. For example, prohibiting synthetic pesticides. Biodynamic is organic plus specific unique farming practices, like 9 special compost teas, for instance, and precision timing. Natural is organic or biodynamic plus super duper minimalist winemaking. Okay, that's the most simplest way of viewing all 3 of those farming ethics and winemaking ethics. Sustainability is not a farming ethic specifically. Instead of it's a holistic way of thinking about everything that focuses on the health and longevity of the environment, the business, the community. It views everything in a different light. All the things are on the table. So your questions about, people ask about forest regeneration and protection, riparian elements, aquifers, all that, from farming to light bulbs to packaging. And likewise, the lens is that when you view it that way, Napa Green and sustainability is always improving. Progress is happening in real time. They're revamping standards this February with new elements: carbon farming, water efficiency, forest protection, pesticide regulations, and social equity, which we'll touch in a minute. But something that's exciting for me is that producers recertify every 3 years with Napa Green, and a goal would be to go to, their goal is going to ask wineries to go carbon neutral in 6 years, and then carbon negative in 9 years. So like COVID, negative is now a good thing, right? Normally I like to hang out with people who are with positive people, but these days I like those who are negative. I'm just sorry, that was a bad joke there. Anyway, with sustainability, is one thing is clear, that I want to pose a general question to the panel, and that is, why does actual certification matter to you, as opposed to just being sustainable?
Well, I think it's a part of formally joining the community and vocalizing, we're in this with you all. I think that's part of it, supporting each other. I think the certification helps us stay disciplined and moving forward, because I think one other important part of the Napa Green program, which is important to mention, which is you have to recertify. You don't get your certification and you're done. You have to, every 3 years, recertify in the winery, every 5 years, recertify in the vineyard, and you have to continue to show that you've made progress. And so I think those are critical reasons why the program certification was important for us. It helped keep us on the straight and narrow. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. And you know, to that point, Julie, I want to bring you in here because I want you to consider, I want to listen to your consideration with Napa Green and the ethos of sustainability. And especially since there's an important emphasis on from soil to bottle. It's not just viticulture and winemaking. It is also after that, right? Dry goods and so forth. And this reminds us of the small steps that one can take. So I want to bring you in as well as bring in the 18th Zinfandel that you have brought for us today.
Yeah.
And how it typifies it.
Should I talk about this just a little bit?
Yes.
It was born in 1971, and it's on St. George rootstock, which is one of the great old rootstocks that's known to be drought tolerant. You know, it's like the only thing that's older than Zin on St. George, I think, are Pets, Petit Syrahs and sadly, Zinfandel has shrunk from at one time over 50% of Napa's vineyards to now something like just 3%. So interestingly enough, people are bringing back Zinfandel and bringing back Petit Syrah and Spanish varieties, Southern Italian varieties, Sicilian varieties, experimenting with a lot of varieties that are perhaps more climate resilient. In the meantime, I took my old California sprawl vineyard that again planted in 71 and elevated it and opened it up to air and light, which is one of the foundations of disease prevention when you're farming organically. The dry farming piece, certainly I think of that whole, what's the underground structure? Right now, the cover crop that we plant is building microorganism nutrition, it's building vine nutrition, it's building the kind of drought resilience in an unprecedented drought year last year, and so far again one this year. The vines, I really believe it's not voodoo. I really believe that they talk with each other, and that there's communication between the roots and the microorganisms, and there's a drive to sustain, to survive. So besides that sort of voodoo science, I'm sure that we're going to discover more about the benefits of biodiversity in soil that leads directly to a holistic vine nutrition, that leads directly to a balance of chemistry in the grapes, that leads directly to the ability to ferment wine through. And great wine comes from, I truly believe, a soil that is sound and has a diverse set of microorganisms in it. So we've had this wonderful sort of sense for a long time, and even in our small little thing, that we can get people out into the vineyard. And this is the business. And this is what drives, I think, Napa Green. It's the authenticity of it all, right? We can get people out in the vineyard, and this is the only business in the world that I know about that is so incredibly vertically integrated. You can be drinking a glass of wine in the vineyard and sharing that energy, your energy giving the vine and giving energy to you, drinking the glass of wine that was literally made right there. I just don't know of any other throughput. And the idea that there's so many of us working together as this community to bring about ever increasing changes and improvements. I love the idea that my team and the people who visit here can kind of witness that firsthand and witness our striving to just keep learning. We've got some, gosh, I'm not the professionals that Anna and Elizabeth are. It's, you know, you just have so much to learn. And I would love to have more research, and I hope that there'll be more research as we go on in soil nutrition and diversity and some of the newer farming techniques. You know, as we're seeking to reduce till, one of the things that we realized for dry farming and for reducing tillage is that we really needed to have a sound and very diverse soil structure. So building all of those elements, and then getting our staff to really understand that there is a tie-in between reuse and recycle and energy conservation and personal justice and health, and how heavy your bottles of glass are and how good your wine is. There's a great connection there. So the more that this community of Napa Green participates in that, the more I think it's not just about buy-in. I actually hate that word. I think it's about absorption and energizing people, right? About the authenticity of what we're trying to create.
And you went to, yes, that's well put. You went to slightly lighter bottles, I believe. Can you touch on that for a minute? Because that reduces, that's a small step, right? It reduces.
Yeah, you know, people are always asking us about, okay, what are we really doing? Well, you know, we found out the other day from a wonderful seminar that I think the notes are going to be online about cork and how carbon sequestration is inherent in the use of cork, for example. It's incredible. The use of lighter glass can compound, and the use of reused glass can reduce the energy consumption of a glass firing plant by as much as 25%. The cost to transport lighter glass. Lighter glass, you know, this is not technically as light as it gets, but it's pretty close. And the transport and social justice costs of having a heavier bottle. And all of these bottles are, you know, really, all the bottles tonight that we're seeing are really kind of respectful of that, I think. And it's important to think what Napa Green and what I think we're all trying to do. I mean, I started the organic business here because my kids were playing out in the vineyard. That was very simple calculus. But then you kind of go from there, and it starts to make more sense the more research. It wasn't until recently that we could even come up with carbon models or carbon neutral models. And now that that's going to be a requirement for Napa Green going forward. I did mine the other day with RCD. It's you know, it's an educational tool as much as it is a tool to say, okay, you better get on the bandwagon. This is not a green bandwagon. This is an authentic quest for getting better.
Excellent. And so this is, by the way, I really enjoy the nobility of this Zinfandel. I'm just tasting it. Fantastic. Elizabeth, what do you think of this, of the Zin?
Yeah, there's a real purity of fruit to this Zin, and it's actually very elegant Zinfandel. It's funny, I sort of sometimes think of Zinfandel as you know, a little bit of a peasant grape, but this is really graceful and just lovely, Julie. Well done.
Thank you. Well, we don't macer, it's all hand macerated, hand sorted, hand picked. And I pick it about 6 different times. I pick for rosé as an early harvest, and then I go through the whole vineyard and pick again. But I pick just 8 acres. You guys would laugh. It's so little, but I pick about 8 acres 6 different times to take advantage of all the little micro terroirs. And so that's why I do it myself, because no vineyard manager is going to touch it. But it's fun to work with it, and they all have their personalities too. So go for it. So thank you. That's very nice of you to say that. Well, thank you.
Now, switching gears here, because we want to catch to the other, we want to get through the other elements of not just sustainability, but Napa Green's program that's really holistic. We've talked a lot about viticulture, a lot about winemaking. There's some information you can get directly from the website, but it's not just about agriculture, right? A winery must place itself in the context of the ecosystems and the communities from which they depend. So that's an important element to the core of sustainability philosophy in Napa Green, which is sustaining the human factor, which translates to social equity for workers and communities. I want to ask Anna if she has any specific thoughts on that. O quizás te puedo preguntar en español, si quieres, o en portugués, for all the Mexicanos que están viendo. But just generally, or anybody really who wants to chime in about that topic.
I mean, that point is obviously very, very important to us. As we all know, in Napa Valley, labor has become a more and more complicated question in recent years, particularly, for instance, this year, with the fires, with everything happening in Napa Valley, with COVID, with everything we're enduring this unique year. It's something that we always have obviously in the forefront. Equality, particularly within the vineyard team. We have a part-time vineyard team that works around the clock here at Artesa, and that part is definitely important. But we're actually also looking. Part of it is to mechanization, but with electric mechanization, we're looking very closely into that too. With precision winemaking or precision viticulture in the vineyard. We're looking at this brand new tractor called Monarch. That's an electric tractor to really allow us to get to the forefront of sustainable mechanization. So not sure how else to go here.
No worries. That's great. There are a lot of organizations Napa Green is supporting by virtue of relationships with Napa Vintners, Napa Valley Vintners. They have supported organizations that not only help the environment, that help reducing pesticides, but also organizations that are increasing diversity, increasing inclusion in the wine organizations, Wine Unify, Black Wine Professionals, Hughes Society, Roots Fund. Right, and an awareness that even in this panel today, there's a bilingual nature here. There's two people from Brazil, one from Origen de Mexicano, de mi familia, right? And it's a beautiful thing where it's multicolored, as well as multi-perspective, and I think that raises the joy and the grace. We bond through wine's grace, right? So Napa Greens also has components to that that are part of that certification as well. So I
just want to point out the Vintners. I mean, with Premier Napa Valley and the Napa Valley auction, they've raised millions and millions of dollars for local charities throughout the years. It's absolutely, I think, trend-setting. You see that a lot now, but 15, 20 years ago, the amount of money they raised for local, and a lot of them for, people without health insurance, for a local health clinic. It's absolutely valid for childcare, for farm workers themselves. I think they've done an absolutely incredible job in fostering that message.
Yes, and then
I think the other thing is,
please go ahead.
Is that there's 400 years of history, of Latin history here. And I think that there's one of the reasons why it's Tres Sabores is about a song, Saborani, which is all about passion and about community and family. And I don't think that there's enough credence given to the skilled assets of our labor force and the history and the foundation of our community that's built on that skilled labor. And I think a lot of people look at me when I'm talking about that as visitors and say, you know, that really is part of our portrait. And it's really important to be not only just inclusive on the surface, but to really give the recognition and the credence to that history, that foundation, that strength, that devotion, that love. You know, it sounds a little corny, but that's what it is. And we're, you know, there's been a lot of community intervention and work around the whole issue of COVID and now vaccination programs for essential workers. Farm workers are essential workers.
Yes, they are. We are all essential workers, right? In the beverage industry. Well, I think Gavin Newsom said that a few days ago. You know, talking about resilience and community. None of this can matter if we are not sustaining our business, right? Our profits and our responsibility to maintain the longevity of the wineries as well. The question, therefore, of affording sustainable techniques must be turned on its head, right? An example, over the past 5 years, Napa Green producers have saved almost $2 million in energy costs and almost 12 million gallons of water. So when you think about that, you reduce the carbon footprint, energy, water costs, reduce the inefficiencies, you're reducing the costs of that. And I know that, Julie, you had talked about that, how the Napa Green's website evolution, like the richer tools that are there, I'm sure, and Elizabeth and Anna can back you up on that. To even have that conversation is huge, right? The water knowledge and the questions around, I think some of the questions even being asked here about precision spraying from Switzerland. Touch on that a little bit if you want.
Well, you know, we now are in the generation of being able to understand a lot more about carbon and a lot more to the use of carbonators and other machines that through even just the very basic vineyard to vineyard use of sound burning, you know, carbon neutral burning techniques. Part of the idea is to educate each other about how that can go forward. And that has, even on a very small scale, every little bit by bit by bit, you just can't be in this business as a farmer. Wendell Berry says, you know, farmers can exist. There's economic justice that's worthy, you know, and this is all part of it. But as we strive to be more carbon neutral and as we strive to kind of figure out the tools, you know, I'm struggling with water. I'm basically carbon neutral and I dry farm, but I still have a few vineyards on the hills and my olives that are irrigating. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna convert, I'm gonna save all this water and I'm gonna put in meters and all of that and save the energy costs. And lo and behold, I think it's just my stupid old water heater in my house. You know, it's sort of like, okay, but at least you have the tools to continue to strive to make improvements on this. That's the basic idea. That would
Thank you. I want to make one real-time announcement that Napa Green has just certified Artesa as Napa Green Winery certified. That just happened days ago, so cheers to Anna.
Yes, it's very recent. I actually found out through one of these calls because I was unaware and I was so excited. I was really happy. It's something, and like, it's just like Elizabeth said, it really is a mind-changing, not just, you know, the management, you know, the facilities team, the production team, but all the employees, because it really is, you know, you stop using plastic, you know, plastic utensils, plastic water bottles, and you really have to educate the team. And we're looking into solar. We're looking very closely at that, and I'm just really excited to this. I think this new step into the winery will be really important to marry with all the things we're already doing in the vineyard. But for the carbon, I wanted to say, we're actually looking, there's a new company, I think they're based out of Oregon. Actually, one of our sister wineries in Spain brought that to our attention. They're capturing carbon from the fermentation. So CO2 is carbon dioxide is a byproduct of fermentation. And this company, they're already working with breweries throughout the United States, and they're just now starting to look into how can that be done in the wine industry. And we bring these big cartridges of CO2 to gas at space of tanks and to do all this wine work. The idea of capturing this byproduct of fermentation and be able to utilize it. So not only are you helping the planet, you're also saving money in the process. We looked at it late in harvest last year. We weren't able to swing it well enough, but we're looking very closely and are intending to run some trials throughout this harvest, and really excited at that.
Thank you very much, Anna. As Elizabeth, as I'm gonna prep you, because I'm gonna land on you after I finish saying the next element here, which is really gonna bring it home, and hopefully you can have some thoughts on this. There's public perception around this, right? And there's some studies that show that displaying clear certifications and sustainable achievements increase a boost on sales up to 20%. Viewcraft, Anna Britton, who is the director of Napa Green, she brought that up when she was there. But remember my bet earlier in the very beginning when I said, let's change the minds that Napa is also climate resilient. So that's not really, my hope is that is now percolating through the audience, because it's really about you, Napa Valley wine lovers and customers. So Elizabeth, thinking about this, right? Humans are drawn to stories and connections. Wine is full of them. Your wine, the Chimney Rock SLD, is full of them. This has been a part of Napa's story, and the session aims to make that more visible. And that story, for those who are watching, is now your story, right? It's your reason to say, I love Napa wines, in addition to everything else, because of the resilience in climate, because of the green certifications, because of the thoughtful stewardship of our land. A new chapter welcomes you. And so therefore, Elizabeth, I'm just curious if any last words from you about that subject.
Well, I think, one of my favorite things about welcoming guests to Napa Valley, it's always eye-opening for somebody who has never been familiar with the process of wine, how complex it is, how much goes into, the managing of a vineyard and growing grapes and making wine, and how many people are behind and how much love goes into every one of these projects. But I think, with the level of success of Napa Green really points to something very special about Napa Valley, that there's a sense of leadership that we need to help lead other wine regions that I think consumers should be very proud of and should be very excited, I think, to support these stories. And what's beautiful about this panel, I mean, Julie, with your small acreage, you are, the minutia that you're putting into farming that little piece of land, to some bigger commercial companies, to a medium-sized wineries like Anna and I, that are family owned. So I hope, if anything, the take-home message is there is something very special behind the force of these Napa wineries and the belief. And I think this is one other thing, which I know Anna and Julie can really relate to. When you stand out in the middle of a row of vineyards at like sunset, or you're taking a walk and you see an egret, or, you're looking at grapes, there you develop, this is inevitable, you develop a sense of reverence for the land. And I feel like I have absolutely no choice but to be as responsible as I can. And I think that's what I want to communicate. I think what this is all born of is a sense of reverence for the land and gratitude and responsibility. So those are my closing thoughts.
Wow, well said. Well said. Any last words from me, from you, Julie, perhaps? To wind this down.
I think now I've got a first generation winemaker, my eldest son, and now I've got grandchildren, and my goal is very simple. It's a very old tract. It's 7 generations. It's what described my sense of sustainability. I want my land to be productive. I want to set it up to be productive for 7 generations in the future.
I just want to end by saying that I think that Napa Valley is, we're really I feel the essence of California, the diversity of California, but also this into the world. I mean, there are people attending from Mexico, from Japan. There was a Nuno, Portuguese in Switzerland. And I think it's absolutely fascinating that, we're able to spread this incredible gospel of sustainability and loving our land and loving, California, which for me is a big drive that why I came here and love Napa Valley so much. And I think, thank the Vintners, because at the end of the day, they really are the glue that keeps us all the Vintners together and really pushes forward and pushes to push the envelope and to want to do better every year. So.
Thank you, Anna. Elizabeth, we started with you, and perhaps we could end with you. Actually, no, we already went through everybody, round robin, I think. There's a lot. The drive here, I think, with everybody is that there is that love percolates, right? There is more to it than just luxury, just Cabernet, just points, and just Michelin stars. Those all are important, right? But without the stewardship and without this protection of our community, of our land, of our people, and of our businesses, none of this can thrive for our next generations, right? So I think there's a nice little, nice wind up there, wind down there. Hopefully we can all sleep a little bit better at night knowing that Napa is doing its part. And people who are listening are doing your part to support us and spread the word that this is all about love and beautiful wine and the grace of humanity.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Now, Connor, turn it back to you. Go from there.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Well, thank you all. That was perfectly well said. Thank you, Martin, for running the session. So beautifully done. And thank you for making such great wines, our Elizabeth, Julie, and Anna. Thank you for what you do to protect our environment. And I hope you have a great rest of your evening. So good night.
Thank you. Hasta luego. Adiós.
Good night, everybody.